Hey, this is Frank, and I'm back for another episode of Midnite Snack, and it is 2026, and I'm excited for the first 2026 guest of Midnite Snack. I want to welcome Andrew Kerr. Hey, this is going to be in a small window. Your video is now paused because I have mispronounced my wonderful guest's name. It's Andrew Kerr. Andrew Kerr. Everybody that's reading this right now, they're going to say Kerr, and they're going to do like me, but it's the old Scottish pronunciation. It's Andrew Kerr.
There you go.
It's a special set of skills. So this is now in the little window, Kerr. I'm going to say it wrong again later, but it's Kerr. Hey, Andrew.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be the first one of 2026.
I know.
Thank you for having me.
It's exciting. We got through the holidays.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cold,
Yeah.
sort of. It's been warm.
Surprisingly warm in spots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been kind of the typical Nashville weather.
Yeah.
You just wait a little while and it's going to change. Mm-hmm. You doing good?
Doing great. Yeah. Always excited this time of year. And like you said, the weather's not my favorite, but there's so much momentum and everybody. I'm kind of a resolution person, so getting out there and trying to be better, as we all should, right?
Resolutions. I haven't even talked about resolutions this year. Anyway, we're going to talk about Andrew and why he is a guest on Midnite Snack, because he is a change maker. He is a leader. He is an influencer in Nashville, Tennessee, a lot of accolades. But before I get to a very impressive bio that you're going to want to hear, I want to get to the reason we're here. One of the reasons is a Midnite Snack. So before I get into the bio, I want to ask you, are you a snacky person? Do you have snacks?
Definitely a snacker, yes. I don't like food that much in general, but snacks, yes.
So just real quick, explain the difference between food and snacks.
I'm not a big meal. I'm not a foodie. I don't cook.
Okay.
So whatever the go-to, grab a snack and sort of graze, that's more my speed.
Okay, yeah. Instead of trying to figure out what you're going to eat, a snack's much easier.
I have snack lunch a lot.
Okay, well, if you're up at night,
yes.
What would be a go-to midnight snack?
My wife is always a sweets person, and she's tried to drag me into that, into the pool. Mm-hmm. But I'm more of like a salty, not a sweet. So a good pretzel, like a hard pretzel.
A good hard pretzel.
Sourdough, something like that is really kind of what I will, munch
a good
on.
Sourdough hard pretzel.
Oh, there you go.
And I just dropped my water. Hold on.
That is it. No, that's exactly right.
Here we are.
The Snyders. Yeah.
It's the Snyders. They're sponsoring this episode of Midnite Snack. No, our official sponsor is TMG, the McCracken Group, who I'm with, and we'll get to them. But Snyder sourdough hard pretzels.
That's you.
I've got your back. All right, go ahead. I'm going to give you the whole bag.
Wow. Okay. This is my souvenir.
And I have a whole bag, and we're going to make a little noise and open these up. Go ahead.
You want me to eat?
Yeah, I want you to open.
Well, as I was going to say, you can barely hear yourself, or much less the TV when you're eating these. So
this will be.
You got to kind of break it into a chunk like this.
This will be a new adventure. And let's just see. Let's just taste it. Oh, look, this is a whole one. What an episode, folks. Listen. I can get into that.
Oh, boy. Definitely your noisiest episode here.
Authentic snacking. This is authentic. Now, you can push your mic back and enjoy a pretzel. We do have water. We even do have backup water. Mm-hmm. I'm going to finish this bite of my pretzel that I actually do really like. And this actually may be very few occasions do we edit. I might edit this bite so that I can read. But I do want you to enjoy your snack.
Well, you didn't know what you were getting into here, Frank.
It's all about authenticity. It's like whatever your midnight snack is what we're going to have.
Okay.
So
I appreciate it.
That's a good pretzel. Now, I want to tell folks more about you. Now, I'm sure if people see this video clip or this advertisement, they're going to say, "Oh, Andrew, great! I want to hear more from Andrew," because you're connected to a lot of folks in Nashville. You've been doing it a long time, and I'm going to tell you folks why. He's a technology executive and a CEO of 20 years. He has 20 years of diverse experience leading teams, delivering software solutions and helping individuals and organizations to grow and thrive. Now, there's some of this that I will skim because I want to get into
Please
some
do.
of this as we talk to you. But you're currently the CEO at FortyAU Solutions, where you lead a team of software developers and help clients. We're going to get into some of that. Okay. Before FortyAU as the CEO, you were an assistant vice president at HCA's Parallon Technology Solutions, where you directed over 150 consultants to deliver IT projects for some of the nation's top healthcare companies. But also, I'm going to get to this question. This is one of my first questions, but I'll skip it out of your bio. We'll save it. A little bit of a nugget we're going to save. And also, you have a strong passion for leadership development. You're an author and a speaker. You're also a certified facilitator. And you're a Vanderbilt graduate. I'm going to ask some of the questions about that. But as far as a CEO of FortyAU, we're going to get into that and more of that. But based on all of this that we're going to dig into as we have this conversation, your background is impressive. And getting to know you in the time that I've been able to spend with you, and we met last fall sometime or late last summer, and had a meal together. You're just your background is impressive, and you're an expressive person. But so what would be maybe not on LinkedIn or the internet that's part of your background that somebody may be surprised to learn about Andrew?
Surprise. I mean, and you listed the key roles, right? I feel like I've got quite a few extracurriculars, as I call them, kind of. So I'm this morning I was telling you I'm on the church finance committee. I'm the booster club president for Franklin's high school volleyball women's team. And I do a bunch of nonprofit work with one of the groups that I've been involved with for about 12 years on the board. It's called Amputee Blade Runners.
That's one of the things I did read about.
Love working with ABR and being involved with that group. We basically provide lower limb prosthetics to amputee athletes all over the country. So we've been doing that with a friend of mine from Bible study for, like I said, going on 12, 13 years now.
Wow.
And super fulfilling. But I always look for an opportunity to serve and give back. And the secret is, I guess this is bad if I tell everybody, if you just ask me for help, I'm there. So I'm not a guy who says no to a lot of things.
That's a true statement. You said that to me when we first met. Well, we met a couple of times at some different events.
Yep.
And when we had a meal together, and I said, hey, I think I might ask you to be a part of it. And you said, well, I don't typically say no to things. And I'm like, well, we're going to find out. Yeah. But and here you are. But the other thing that I thought was interesting about you, we were at an event together, the 50 Forward event.
That's right.
And we were walking to our vehicles. Mm-hmm. And there was a gentleman that I had talked to earlier, a big man. And I'm walking next to him, and I said, hey, man, if we ever choose up, I don't know if I said this to him, but sometimes this is I say to people, I'll say, if they ever choose teams, I want you on my team, because he was a big dude.
A lot bigger than I was.
And he played football at Vanderbilt.
That's right.
And Andrew says, I also played football at Vanderbilt. Yeah. And that's also that I skipped that part of your bio, because tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, I was came to Nashville in the late 90s. I got into Vanderbilt, and I happened to be able to know somebody that could get me a tryout as a walk-on. And so I walked on from the very beginning. My freshman year, I played all 4 years. I always tell people I played wherever they let me, because I was undersized and probably in some ways had no business being there, but I loved the game. My first game, my childhood team growing up was Notre Dame, and I was kind of going through camp, and I was just doing one day at a time. And I said, well, who's our first game against anyway? And they said, we're playing Notre Dame on Thursday night ESPN. I said, I'm there.
Oh, wow.
So I got hooked, and that was kind of that was from the very beginning. But those were all my friends, and I got beat up by all the best defenses we had in the 90s for about 4 years while getting through Vanderbilt, and absolutely loved it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So super exciting for you this past couple of seasons.
Absolutely. I keep pinching myself. This was the best season we've ever had, and 30 plus years I've been following the team by far. Yeah. And I was there at every home game. We went to several road games, and God bless Diego Pavia. How about that?
That is his name, for the first time hearing it, it sounds almost like a saint name, doesn't it?
I actually call him Saint Diego quite a bit. Yeah.
Saint Diego. Well, you may know this about me. I don't know. I'm a big Alabama fan. the fact that Vanderbilt, carried the goalpost down the street a couple of seasons ago, I thought, they can have one. They can,
at least, right?
Alabama's given so many teams a great moment. You can count all the great moments.
60 years. We were 0-59 against number one teams, and my son actually goes to Alabama, so I can say roll Tide. It doesn't come out of me naturally,
well, good.
But he was there for me with that game, and it was an interesting turn of fate, I think. Yeah.
Well, do you think people in the tech community in Nashville, do you think when they know that about you, about playing football at Vanderbilt?
Some do. I think when it comes up in conversation, I think a lot of people are surprised. And again, I'm not sure I'm built like the typical SEC football player. So it is a fun fact to kind of throw in when they're not expecting it. Maybe occasionally or it gets brought up.
The other thing that I think is a fun fact that I kind of skipped out of your bio here because I want to learn more about it. But prior to at HCA. For several years, you worked at the Federal Investigative Services Division with the Office of Personnel Management in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, so I was part of what's called the Presidential Fellows Program, and it's a long-running program where they bring in young people right out of grad school. They put you in a government agency, and they give you essentially a 2-year rotational assignment where they want you to kind of see what government service looks like. I was a political science major at Vanderbilt. I always kind of thought about maybe going to D.C., and I did my graduate school when I was actually coaching at Vanderbilt. And so right after 9/11, I go, hey, that's kind of where I really want to go and see if I can serve. The Office of Personnel Management wasn't my first choice, but I joke with people now, if I'd only stayed up there for 25 years, I could have been fired by Elon Musk here recently when he came in and kind of took over. But no, it was actually a great job for me. It was an e-government initiative. I'd never done anything with IT. Got put into an e-government initiative to speed up the federal background investigation process.
Oh, wow.
Process automation. That was right when they were bringing on Homeland Security. TSA had just been invented. And so we had to process all these background checks, and you couldn't do them all on paper. And so I went across the government teaching people how to use technology, which is a lot of still what I do today.
Yeah, well, and that's what I want to get to. Yeah, so that's I think also kind of a fun fact. So you mentioned kind of seeing not coming from a technology background when you got into that role, and then helping people embrace technology. Yeah. And we talk about when I have people come here and we have a conversation and we have a midnight snack that, by the way, guess what?
Even more. You're doubling down.
Break off another piece so you can chew it while I'm talking. But what technology challenges were you facing, say, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
What's a good example of when you think back in your career in technology space, 15 years ago, what was a challenge?
Well, I mean, and honestly, I'm going to look at it from the lens that I always did back then, which is you have to get people to pick up the technology and use it in meaningful, productive ways. And so in many ways, the people are always the challenge, right? So we had just, in the late 2000, early 2000s, that's when just the internet boom had kind of happened and gone through the hype cycle and the bubble bursting. And so then you get a lot of people that are jaded against the technology. And usually the technology itself is going to be sound. It's going to get better, right? Mm-hmm. But we're in the same hype cycle right now with AI, mm-hmm. where some people are overselling it, some people are overhyping it. So it kind of sets a bad precedent when you go in to try and get people to use it. The poor users, right, are typically just trying to perform a job or a service and get their work done. And here we come from the tech field with promises to make everybody's life better. And what we do in the short term is we make it harder. So when you're changing, when you're adopting new technology, you're going to be worse before you get better. And we're often not honest about that.
That's a good takeaway. There's going to be some growing pains.
Always.
And you're going to feel like, is this even worth it?
That's right.
And then you start seeing the benefits.
Yeah, I mean, there's a proven models that say, the valley of despair is when people go, why in the heck did we even take on this project? And if you can start climbing out of it, you'll eventually get to a better place. But it's not easy or quick or cheap, typically.
Yeah, it's the growth is in being the uncomfortable part.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
So is that I kind of was asking the question today, and what you're doing today at FortyAU, is it similar in challenges? Is it the people?
Very similar. I mean, and again, what we're trying to do is help people innovate at FortyAU. So typically that comes in the form of building new software products, more and more these days, AI-infused software products, right? And so there definitely is a change management component to almost every project we undertake. I always tell people I really don't think the tech is the hard part, because we have, and I say that from a place of maybe luxury, because I have really good technologists and developers on my team. Mm-hmm. So I think we can meet all those challenges, but it's really more to me about aligning the technology to the business model, to the revenue, to whatever it is that you're seeking as a business, and really keeping those two aligned, which, it entails kind of staying in touch with the vision of the founders and the people that are running that business, and saying, where can we provide value? And that equation is always shifting a little bit.
So I'm okay if this is a plug for FortyAU, because I'm genuinely interested. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the name FortyAU.
Sure.
And then tell me more about some examples of how you're helping your clients. Something came up in conversation. A friend of mine was visiting a college or a university or some kind of sports facility that had some software that was helping improve their basketball shooting.
Yeah.
And it turns out that's a company that FortyAU helped.
That's right. That's called Noah Basketball. Yeah.
So tell us more about FortyAU, the name, and then some examples of how you're helping people, like some products or things.
Well, so FortyAU, my business partner, Dwayne Arnett, came up with the name, and it really stands for 40 astronomical units. And so Dwayne was always a Carl Sagan fan and a fan of the space program in general. And so 40 astronomical units is the distance that the Voyager 1 spacecraft took a famous photo of Earth. What Carl Sagan's concept was that the satellite was far enough away that you could get a family photo of our solar system. And so it was far enough away. He said, flip the probe around and let's see if we can get a photo and get all 9 planets. At the time, we had 9 planets.
At the time, Pluto, never forget.
That's right. Yeah. And so took a famous photo, and they wrote an essay called "A Pale Blue Dot." So if you go look it up, it's narrated by Carl Sagan. Yeah. It's really, really poetic. But what it talks about is, look at that tiny pinprick, that tiny pale blue dot in an ocean of blackness. That on it is everyone you've ever loved, everyone you've ever heard of, every king and conqueror that's walked the earth has lived and died on a speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. And so what does that mean with technology?
You need to rewind that, folks. That's very good. And
it means to us, have some perspective about what you're doing. He talks about humility. He talks about, we think about as consultants, we're coming in from the outside. We're bringing something to the table, but we don't know the whole context. We're trying to be humble servants when we get in there and say, hey, we're here to help. We need something from you. You need something from us. And how do we make that exchange in the most productive and efficient way possible so that we can really add value?
Yeah. Well, so what would be an example? I mentioned the basketball.
Yeah. So in the case of Noah Basketball, it's a fascinating company out of Huntsville that was really cool history. It's used by about 95% of the NBA teams right now. And when they came to us, they did have a unique technology problem to solve, which was, how do I use, at that time, kind of nascent computer vision technology to track an orb, in this case a basketball, as I'm shooting it and releasing it, and be able to track the arc of that shot as it's going towards the basket. So that was kind of a cool R&D type project where there wasn't an easy answer. And so we actually, one of my business partners worked with Carnegie Mellon University and some of the really smart computer science people up there, and we figured out a model, and then we had to go actually take that model and turn it into a reality, into a working software product. And so that was kind of the innovation many, many years ago now. Mm-hmm. It is a very successful product, and like I said, most of the MBA and Division I colleges are using it, and it's opened up the game of basketball to a degree of analytics that they never had before, right? So that's a really fun one for us to kind of talk about.
Did you work out a special arrangement where there's somehow FortyAU is getting paid every shot?
We did not. No, we weren't that
Don't pay us now,
savvy
just
back
every
then,
shot.
But we're a services company, and so usually that work product is always owned by the company. And we want to come in and we want to take on your innovative technology problems. Usually that's in combination and being able to partner up with the people that are already there, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we're accelerating something. A lot of times we're taking something that maybe that internal team didn't want to do because it was a little bit hairy or complicated. And so can we take that on, let your team do what they're best at, let us do what we're good at, and how do we pair up and make something special out of it? So we're a software company, but we're a services company really at heart.
That's great. And you're going to give me maybe another example that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, and again, these days it's kind of like, again, what is the hope and promise of AI and how do I apply it to my business? That's a hard question to answer, and you don't want to jump for the easy answer a lot of times, which is, just kind of buy something off the shelf and throw it out there to say you did it.
Yeah.
Ours is about being more intentional and coming into your business and saying, what's broken right now? Is this a good use case for AI? We may have to fix some of this other stuff first, but if it is, then we'll definitely help you figure it out and kind of partner with you on that innovation journey so that you do it responsibly and you do it in a way that's really going to add value to the business and not just be an AI showpiece of some sort.
Well, I think that's good. Ideally, I'm not trying to plug FortyAU,
Sure.
but I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Because I think it's a great, everything you're saying is a great
what
company.
I do every day.
And what my company does is similar in what you do, is that helping find the right solutions to the problems instead of saying, buy this or this is going to fix your problem. Let's listen, let's do that.
Yeah.
And there might be opportunities for us to partner together, which I definitely want to do that.
Well, and the key you said is good listening. I mean, a consultant that already has the answer when they walk in the door isn't really a good consultant. So it's really being a good listener and mining and finding where the problem, where the pain is, and then you see if you can help.
And that's, you're a services company. That's the way, you put each services company. And what I tell people is I don't sell things anymore. Because if I'm selling you something, then there's some kind of spin there.
Right.
I just want to listen and help you find the right solution.
Right. Yeah.
There's a friend of mine that hopefully I'll have to come to Nashville at some point, who's the CEO of a textile company that makes uniforms.
Okay.
But their motto is we love and serve others, and then we also make uniforms.
We have a uniform back here if you need one.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's similar in concept,
Yeah.
but which is a good segue into this next question I want to ask you, is that when did you become passionate about leadership? Because I want to spend some time talking about you and leadership.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably say third grade. I always, when I was little, I honored the folks in the military. Even before I got into sports, and so I wrote West Point a letter when I was in third grade and said, hey, what do I got to do to get in there? And they said, they were very gracious. They sent me back a big packet of materials, and again, it just always like the idea of duty and serving, and what a good leaders look like. And so you read the biographies and you sort of try and pick up traits and you pick up, tips for success and take classes and you read books and all those kind of things. And for me, the transformation, a lot of times was when I got into my first corporate leadership spot when I was working at HCA. They gave me an opportunity as a young manager to lead a team. And then you figure out pretty quick that you don't have all those skills. And so you have to take a good self-inventory and go, well, which one do I need to learn like right now? And so I started picking up and trying to pick up one piece per year and kind of add it to my repertoire. And I found pretty quickly that the best way for me to do that was to read up on it and then try and teach it back to somebody else. And when I had to have that pressure of getting in front of somebody else and having to explain it, then I would learn it more deeply and I would adopt it typically much more. And so that's kind of how my formula has evolved is, again, self-inventory. What do I need to work on this year? What do I need to work on now at this stage of my company? Really get that material down through studying and then teach it back to somebody else. And about that time, it starts to sink into my thick skull a little bit. Yeah,
well, so you say third grade, you wrote a letter to West Point. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and there was no West Point connection. We just, it was that was where you went if you were, an aspiring officer of some sort. Right?
Now, did you come from Atlanta to Nashville?
I did. Yeah.
To go to school?
I went to high school in Atlanta and then came to Vanderbilt in the late 90s. Yeah.
So this leads me to your book, which is on leadership, and it's called The Humility Imperative.
Yep.
But what is the longer title of it?
So the longer part is, why the humble leader wins in what I call the age of ego, and I think, and I still think it's as true as when I put that title out, 7-8 years ago, but we live in an age that we are taught to sort of, it's all about you and your truth and this idea of you're a brand and all these kind of things that we're taught to really focus in on ourselves. The whole self-help industry is kind of based around that. And I said, I want to try and flip that narrative a little bit. And what I really, the initial insight was as I'm studying leadership and I'm putting together these topics, you do pile up and you hopefully as a leader, as you progress, you do pile up a lot of good skills, but the skills that got you there won't keep you there sometimes. And in fact, some of the things that you learn along the way can be a detriment to you when you get to a position of leadership where you finally make it to that mountaintop and you figure out really what I should be here to do is actually serve others well. And so how do you kind of incorporate that and incorporate this idea of humility into your leadership practice so that in some ways it's an antidote to the ego, the selfishness, the entitlement that we see from leaders in a lot of ways. And so to me, I saw it as almost an antidote to help sustain and maybe keep you in a position of leadership longer if you figured out how to work that into your repertoire.
Well, I've read in your book just kind of that pro-humility without it being perceived as weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and that is the downside, right? Is that again the forceful, charismatic, dominant sort of D dominant in the disc profile. That's kind of your typical image of what a leader looks like, and it's so ingrained and so sort of old school that we have a hard time almost imagining anything different. And one of the books that changed my mind around it was when you read Jim Collins' Good to Great, and he talks about, if you really look at what he's saying there, is the very best leaders of these companies were not what you think. They don't look like the image that we kind of have in our heads of who we kind of vote for, who we promote, all those kind of things. It was really the quiet people that really learned their craft, served others well, but were also very passionate and very ambitious for their organizations, not necessarily themselves in an egocentric way.
Yeah. So makes me think, as you've studied leaders, and I also read in your book that as you were reading biographies of leaders, if they didn't mention humility, you're like, well, I don't know if I'm a fan of that leader, which is, I think I can be on board with that. Who is a leader, let's say, not living, that you go, that is someone that probably was not what people perceive them, like a grandiose character, but pretty led with humility.
Yeah. And
maybe someone today that you is maybe it's an author today that you read.
Yeah. So the example that comes to mind, and I think he got a lot of attention for this during his lifetime, was Pope Francis. And so again, you think about, you've been crowned the Pope. What you say literally comes from the mouth of God, right? And so you have this idea of being infallible. And so he really took a very different take on being the Pope, which was, hey, the church is a field hospital where we don't really ask what religion you are. If you're bleeding in the street, we're there to help, kind of thing. And even his statement about, who am I to judge people? A lot of times in leadership, we admire quick, decisive judgment. And he was going, well, who am I to judge? And that's really not what the church should be about. If you think about it on a global scale, the church should be a servant to those, right? And so, leaders like that, again, he was recognized and named one of Forbes' top leaders because it was sort of the anti-message that you hear from a lot of leaders, right? And so, when I started writing the book, I was really kind of disappointed in the lack of material out there that covered this topic, right? And I've been encouraged, and not that I had anything necessarily to do with it, but you have seen much more literature. Maybe it's because I'm clued into it. Patrick Lencioni, one of his recent books, talks about how humility is one of those things that a great teammate has, right? And just the way it really opens up a much more participative leadership style. I think the younger generations don't want to be told what to do. They want to be included in the thought-making process. They want to be brought in, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you involve them and really open up space for others to contribute and let them be a part of that discovery? That ignites a different type of motivation than you can just telling somebody what to do and saying, execute your job for me.
Yeah, I told somebody, actually it was another episode of this, I was talking with somebody that was able to come in. I don't know who said this, and you probably, as a study on leadership, you may be able to tell me who made this statement, but it was, when I listen to a manager, they seem important, but when I listen to a leader, I seem important.
Sure.
And I don't know if you've heard that before.
Variations of it. I can't tell you where the
I can't take any credit from it, but I connect with that.
Right.
Because if I've worked for someone that I feel like's listening to me and has some empathy and sympathy and wants me to succeed, rather than you do this or you're out of here, I don't want to do that.
That's right. That's right. And you're not vested in it, right? Again, sometimes it's fine. Execution can be fine. And actually they say the only time you prefer non-participative types of leadership is in a crisis, So in a crisis, we might not have time to have a long conversation or debate. We got to get out of here. Show me the way, Frank, In almost all other instances, people prefer a more participative type of leadership. And I think, again, it's this ability, we talk about diversity, and it's not maybe in vogue right now, but the idea of diversity is that you have a lot of gifts and hidden talents on your team. what are you doing to unlock that, right? And if you walk into every team meeting and you go, I already got all the answers, y'all don't need to say anything. In fact, if you just don't participate and let me talk, this is going to be a real smooth meeting, but you're not activating them in a way that's engaging and meaningful to them. So I don't care if you have the most diverse looking team even, if you're not asking them and soliciting and trying to pull even in some cases that information out of them, you're not going to get the full measure of talent that you have within that organization or that project activated.
Right. So. Well, I'm going to ask this question because I think it's kind of a good segue from you as a leader of FortyAU and a leader in the other things that you're involved in. What's the ratio of your work-life balance? And then how are they both connected? Because my perception is your personal life or your joy, your life that's outside of earning a living is probably pretty connected, in my opinion, to your work because you seem to be pretty grounded in managing those relationships.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if this is a unique answer, but I would say integrate your work in your life. You know, and again, I think a lot of people have this perception of like, well, I have to be somebody at work and I got to be somebody outside of work. And that dissonance, you know, is difficult to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And you get a case of, you've heard of what people call the Mondays, you know. So it's Sunday night and I've been enjoying my weekend and now I got to go back and be that person on Monday. It is being authentic in some ways, right? But it's like, okay, and I love it. We have a employee in our office and we've tried to create a culture where people are included. And again, if you've got a side project, for instance, they would tell you in a corporate environment, never let your employees moonlight or do anything on the side, right? Well, what about if they get a lot of passion and they can sharpen their skills on something outside of work that they're doing that then they bring back to the office, right? And they bring back that energy and that idea. Those things spill over in positive and negative ways. And so one of our new employees, she just had a baby and she brought her baby into our meeting. And I thought, this is so cool. Well, you know, and again, why not? Like who made the rule you can't have any babies in meetings? And I know they can be disruptive. In some situations that may be a bad idea, right? But I like people who have the courage to say, you know, they're not two separate things. Why don't I try and integrate those? I work a lot, you know, and I think one of the biggest lies, or maybe one of the biggest false truths that this younger generation has been told is that you're kind of weak and you're going to burn out. You know, if you put in too much work, you're going to get tired and you're not going to like it anymore. You don't actually get the benefits of a lot of your work in those first 30 or 40 hours. It's that extra effort, that 40 to 50 hours, that a lot of time unlocks all the value in what you're doing. Wow. Now, I totally believe that you can burn yourself out, right? I'm not arguing to be a workaholic either. I think the studies show that about 50 to 52 hours is when your productivity starts to decline and go in the other direction. But man, you can unlock a whole lot more if you think about you worked 5 to 6 hours more per week over a 10-year period. You're going to outshine your peers by a ton because they all have been told, you know, go home on that 39th and a half hour.
But they have to have that balance or they will. Like if they're two different people, they're going to want to shut that down at 40 hours.
Well, and again, that's if we create that false dichotomy of you can't bring yourself to work and you can't bring your work, you know, and like, so I don't know. I have a little bit of a different take on it. I've always believed that, you know, that discretionary effort and working hard makes a big difference and that you're really not going to do anything great in your life on 40 hours a week.
Well,
you know.
Wow. No. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. It's challenging. All right. Do you need another bite of your pretzel?
I think I need some more water.
Take some water. Take some water. We're going to wind down. I will say this, your book is available on Amazon and you can get it on Kindle. You can get a hard copy. I have a copy of it, and we're going to put the information on here of how to get a hold of your book. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
So what is there's probably a stereotype of a CEO. Sure. You're a CEO. But what is an un-CEO like guilty pleasure or maybe a show, a movie, or a podcast or something that's like, you know, I'm going to shut down some of my active project brain and I'm going to just do something enjoyable that may be completely different than
I'm a little bit on a puzzle kick lately, and so this was, I don't know if it's going to be a kick or if it's a permanent. I've always liked puzzles. I haven't made a lot of time for them. Well, I started doing a couple last year and I don't know, I guess my family picked up on it. So all I got for Christmas was puzzles. And I guess they're kind of a cheap gift and whatever, but I have about 10,000 pieces of puzzle that I'm working my way through right now. And it is really one of those nice things where if you're just sick of watching Netflix and all that kind of stuff, you just kind of go up there and you can be calm. And I'm sure it's good and there's cognitive benefits, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it just to kind of like have a different pastime.
I might have to get into a puzzle. Puzzles can now. Sometimes people get into them on your phone, games and things like that.
I'm old school,
but
jigsaw,
the old puzzles out on the table, don't touch it. I've got a process. I know where this is going. So, tell me more on the personal side. What helps keep you humble, grounded, confident?
Sure.
I know that you mentioned in your book, you can't say you're a humble person because then someone else has to say that you are. Right, yeah. So what is that for you? Tell me more about that.
Definitely my faith. I mean, I've been blessed to have a couple guys that got me started on a early morning Bible study, and it's intended to be a 2-year curriculum, and I'm 12 years into that 2-year curriculum with a couple different groups and a couple different guys that have, so I go at least 2 days a week. You got to get up early. You got to have that discipline. And, even before work starts, you got to go do the real work, and it kind of frames up the week for you. You have guys in there that make you be accountable. Don't come in here and talk this stuff and not act it. And so the people that will challenge you. And certainly I think too, I always think your kids are good, that your kids at the end of the day, mine are a little bit older now, but they don't really care what your job is. They care if you show up. They're not impressed, for the most part, by anything you'll ever do at work. And that ought to humble all of us.
That's great.
They may enjoy the benefits or whatever, but it's pretty much like if you ask your teenage kids or whatever what you actually do at work, and they'll probably give you a pretty funny answer.
I don't really know.
That's right. So I think that's always good to remember as parents, because that's again where your time is where your treasure and your heart are, and it's easy to pour ourselves into our work. It's sometimes hard to show up home when we're depleted and put as much energy into that. So,
well, that's good advice, and I think that'd be powerful for people to hear you say that, to kind of remember those things. Mm-hmm. Well, as we wrap up, and my last question is, What are you most grateful for right now? Mm-hmm. And the second part is, what are you most looking forward to for 2026?
Well, I already talked about Diego Pavia, so I can't say him. No, but grateful for. I mean, we as a company. And this is maybe a little lesson in entrepreneurship, but for the first 10 years, it was all about how much can the leadership team do and put this thing on our backs and sort of carry it forward. And we really, over the last year, entered into a new phase where it's like, hey, we still have the same passion to grow this thing, but we have, the three of us have really hit our limit in what we can do as just the three of us. And so we're going to have to make that a much bigger table, broaden that out, and bring in some new people. And in some cases, it's taken steps backward because you got to invest in them. Mm-hmm. And so it sometimes it goes slower and it doesn't feel like you're making as much progress. But coming into this year, I'm super excited. I'm grateful that I look at it as I got these really talented folks on our senior leadership team that I go, man, they're better than me at that. He's better than me at this. And so you go, man, what could we do as a group for this next phase? And to have people to kind of share both the benefits and the credit with, but also the stuff that's hard. Mm-hmm. So I know I've got really good, strong players that I can share some of that hard stuff with, whereas before I might be reluctant to kind of give that to somebody because I didn't know if they could bear it. I know these guys can bear a lot, and these ladies on our team are really good, and it's just one of those where I think we're set up, in a really cool way, and that's a different feeling for me, to be honest. That we can really share this out, and it's pretty exciting.
I'm grateful for the team that's ready to go. And so what are you looking forward to for 2026?
And again, I think for me, it's a period of growth and change. And I said, we had our all hands meet today. What year isn't though, And so what are those things that you're afraid to do a little bit? That's where the growth is. And so I'm constantly trying to kind of mine that for myself and say, what can I lean into this year? Whether it's delegating more, maybe letting people make a mistake. I don't like to see people fall down, but sometimes that's the best way to learn. So maybe let them make their own mistakes a little bit, not try and swoop in there and let it happen, and then say, what'd you learn? And that's maybe is the more powerful teacher than me telling them, I knew this was going to happen, kind of thing. And let me tell you before you get to the test, what the answer is.
Yeah. So any big events for 2026?
Big events. What am I excited about? So we have a team in Paraguay. And so you talk about I was talking before about mending your life and your work together. So my daughter and I couldn't figure out what to do for spring break, and we want to do something different. So I'm taking her to Paraguay. And so we're going to go down there. The two of us, we're going to do a service project. We're going to meet with my team down there and go out to dinner with them. And we're going to kind of mix in a little work and a little bit of exploring.
And that's just coming up in a couple of months.
Yeah, we'll be going in March. And so I'm going to go explore Paraguay and not just go down there and work, but do a little bit and kind of mix it in and take my daughter for the first time to South America.
That's exciting. Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you gave me some time.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed the conversation and inspired by it, and the people that I'm fortunate enough to get to know and get to meet and have conversations with, I'm like, I feel like I'm building this really cool team. Like at some point in 2026, we get everybody in the same room and have a nice meal or something.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
But thanks a lot. Enjoy. Hey, eat some more pretzels.
Get some more
As
pretzels
we wrap
now.
up, eat another bite of pretzel.
I will. Thank you.
For
Frank.
sure. Do it.
They do make you thirsty, don't they?
Well, I was going to open one bag and then hand them out.
It's always my technique. You got to kind of keep them in there. You got to
open.
kind of crack them and then go a half seat here.
Well, I'm going to say thank you for watching. Check all the information in the details around TMG, Andrew Kerr, FortyAU, links for his book. And I'm going to say roll Tide, maybe. But hey, not a good year for the Tide. Great year for Vanderbilt, and then another great year for Indiana.
We're into a new year.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.